what's going on, everybody? It's Mike Patton, host of Touring the AFC South, and I'm jumping on with a little bit of breaking news. For those that do not know and haven't seen the tweet, that would be the tweet from Adam Schefter, and of course, Ian Rappaport, aka Rap Sheet. The Tennessee Titans are finalizing a deal to hire Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan as their new head coach. Again, breaking news, the Titans are hiring Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, not Shanahan, as their new head coach. Now, plenty will talk about, hey, maybe what about this guy? What about that guy? So first, I'm going to talk about the hire. Now, of course, there were plenty of candidates. There was Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. There was Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, which, of course, he had a tie to Rand Carthen as well, by the way. Then you have, a few other hires as well, a few other guys. Thomas Brown, as well as David Shaw, the former coach of the Stanford Cardinal. Many forget he was in the NFL also. And then, of course, you have all those different names, but they have decided to go with Brian Callahan. Now, many will not understand this move and say, I don't know, I don't like this hire, I don't know about any of that. But let me kind of get into why I think it is a good hire for the Tennessee Titans. First, let's kind of go over his career, if you may. Now, 2016 and 2017, he was the quarterback coach for a one Matthew Stafford. Now, he threw for over 4,000 yards both years under the tutelage of Callahan, along with, of course, only had 10 interceptions each year. So definitely good for Matthew Stafford to not have that many turnovers, of course, under Callahan's tutelage. Of course, 2018, he was the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders at that time. Coached a guy named Derek Carr. Derek Carr had 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 4,000 yards. So you're sensing a theme here with 4,000 yards, right? Of course, you know what he did when he was the offensive coordinator for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Over 4,000 yards, of course, tutored Joe Burrow, kind of helped him to be who he is in terms of the NFL version. Not to say he isn't talented, folks, but hey, helped him to be who he is. So if you don't understand, the guy likes to put the ball in the air. And for a Titans team that's kind of been stuck in the past in terms of, focusing a lot on the running game and not really using the passing game very much, it's refreshing to see that they're hiring someone that's more than likely going to put the ball in the air just a little bit more than what the Titans are used to. Now, I'm saying a little bit more tongue-in-cheek because more than likely the ball will be in the air a little bit more, kind of bring the Titans into more of the 2019, 2020s, whatever you want to say, kind of bring them up to date in terms of offensively, potentially, I will say. Now, I also mentioned the numbers and the quarterbacks that he's worked with to also mention Will Levis. Now, Will Levis was in an offense that was run-centric, and you saw some of the things he was able to do. Imagine being in an offense that a coach is is more offensive-minded, is going to kind of try to, exploit all the things that you do well on the field every single time you go out there. To me, that's what made him an attractive candidate for this position. Now, people will say, well, why not Bobby Slowick if that's the case? He had the Houston Texans offense doing great. Okay, here's where we kind of go a little bit different. Now, I was listening, and I got to give credit where credit's due to Ron Davenport. He kind of talked about the story, and he's talked about it a couple times about how the Callahan kind of laid into the offense 1 week, and then before a bye week, and then laid into them again after a bye week because he felt like they weren't living up to the standard, even though they probably put up some points, but they weren't living up to a standard. So he's a guy that has a standard offensively. He has somewhere that he wants them to be offensively, and he's going to push a team to get there, an offense to get there. With him being over the reins now he gets to do that with his own offense and push them to the range that he wants to be and kind of imagine it the way he wants it to be. And another thing, you notice the Titans really didn't threaten teams a lot down the field consistently. And if you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, what do? They threaten teams down the field consistently. They do hit you with the quick passes. Let's not forget that. Of course, Jamar Chase catching slants and taking off. We know that. However, you can't forget about the deep passes where they threaten the defense down the field. That's one thing that's consistently been missing from the Tennessee Titans. They try to threaten people down the field, but they don't consistently hit on those plays every single game or most games. And that is something that, could stretch the field and create more running lanes for whoever's running the football. So, with the young QB, with a coordinator that is offensive minded and, definitely could help mold Will Levis into what, he wants him to be and what he could be. That's why I think this was a good hire in the first place. So that's something that I think about there. I'm going to get into a few other comments. I have a few other comments over here. Maybe this comment right here from Justin J. Jones. Of course, I did think about this particular gentleman. That would be, and if you're listening, the comment says we need an upgrade at the wide receiver spot, maybe T. Higgins. Now, that's going to be something I'm going to get into. Trust me, I haven't forgot about it, but we still have to talk about the construction of the team in terms of how he fits this team. Now, plenty of people have talked about the Tennessee Titans offensive line this year and how bad it is and things like that. You know who succeeded coaching an offensive line that really wasn't exactly great? That'd be a guy named Brian Callahan. Notice that, of course, his offensive line was paid, but they didn't necessarily perform to the greatest level that they could have. What does he do? He still makes it work, still makes it competitive. And then another thing I want to mention, if you want to talk about developing quarterbacks, look at Jake Browning. Nobody expected anything from him. And of course, when he first got in at quarterback, replacing Joe Burrow, he wasn't necessarily the greatest. We all know about his high school stats. I mean, he was a rock star in high school and especially in college too at Washington. However, when he got to the pros, he was basically relegated to the bench until Joe Burrow got hurt and he stepped into the game. Of course, he didn't necessarily do great off top, but as he got more experience and got more comfortable, did you see him kind of torch defenses just a little bit? You can't just say that's Jake Browning. You got to also say that was the coach, the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. That would be Mr. Brian Callahan. So let me just rewind it for you right there real quick. Look at what he's done with other quarterbacks like a Derek Carr, and a Matthew Stafford over his career being their quarterbacks coach. Look at also what he's done with bad offensive lines and still had very productive offenses. Look at also, the ability to attack down the field. All those things go into being a guy that's definitely someone that can help the Titans offense and kind of grow that offense. Now, people will talk about what about the defense, things like that. Okay, the defense, even though it does have some holes there in terms of secondary, things like that, it doesn't have as many holes as the offense. You fix some on the offense, you can work some things out defensively. I'm pretty sure he's got someone in mind who he wants to bring as defensive coordinator. And there you go. it is what it is at that point, and you fix what you can fix. To me, also, what I would point out is that you've got to also think about this team in terms of kind of transitioning to being probably a little bit younger as well. I mean, he may bring back some pieces that are older. I mean, I know one Danico Autry was, you know, playing ageless this year for the Tennessee Titans, by the way, career high 11 and a half sacks, and he's in his mid 30s or approaching his mid 30s. Surprise, surprise to some, but not to me. I seen the work. So, definitely interesting to watch. It's going to be interesting to see, what he does with that defense, of course, or he brings in to work with that defense. But offensively, there's a lot of positives. And then plus another positive I will throw in there as well. Maybe this is the type of creative offensive coordinator that can help in terms of putting Treylon Burks in the positions to succeed. Now, plenty will talk about he's hurt all the time, or he's this, or he's that. But also look at the ways he was used when he was at Arkansas. He was used in the slot, used him sometimes run the football, used him in all these different ways to make him an effective player on the field. I mean, he was effective with his size and speed, but put pressure on defenses also. So that's another thing to think about, along with, I believe, Chig Okonkwo will definitely benefit from this offense. I mean, look at guys like Sample. They're playing tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. Not nearly the athletic ability of Chig Okonkwo, but he still makes catches, still very effective every single game. So I definitely think it's just a plus for all the pieces that are there offensively that more likely will be here next year, along with, being able to, definitely bring some new ideas as well. And then also, I forgot to mention, you got to also think running back position, Tajay Spears, he's very, very talented running the football, very, very talented running the football and catching the football. I mean, so in that aspect, it'll be just very, very interesting to see how he deploys him and how he gets used, because I think he's going to have a lot of fun using Mr. Tajay Spears. And who knows, you may end up seeing him in the slot running routes. Who knows? All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to get into maybe a few other things about this hire, maybe some potential free agent signings. We'll see what happens. We're going to take a quick commercial break on Tour in the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton, new head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Mr. Brian Callahan.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight.
All right, and we're back. We're back. A little bit of technical difficulties there, but that's all right. Allows me to talk a little bit more about this new hire for the Tennessee Titans. Now, plenty have mentioned about the Tennessee Titans and what they're going to do in free agency. Now, with this hire, you get some kind of maybe a glimpse into what some things could potentially happen. Now, I know the first name that people will mention now that Brian Callahan has been named the head coach, or it's basically they're finalizing a deal for him to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. That one name that is more than likely going to be mentioned is Mr. T. Higgins. Now, for those that don't know, he is the number 2 wide receiver in Cincinnati to Jamar Chase. However, he could be the number 1 on any other team if he really, really wanted to. So that's what I think is going to end up happening, or I would say they would target perhaps. And also you have to remember the Titans do have the second most cap space this offseason. So they could fix a lot of things in one offseason, people. Fix a lot of things. So that could be one target that they could be looking at potentially. Now, another thing, and another thing that may be kind of sneaking around or kind of missing is they're going to be looking for a veteran running back, in my opinion. I believe that Tajay Spears will be the guy, but I think they're going to bring in a veteran running back to kind of back him up and to kind of, I guess spell him at times. More likely more of a bigger back, potentially more explosive guy, or potentially an explosive guy, I should say. And to me, it wouldn't be crazy if Joe Mixon ended up coming down to Nashville. Now, I know plenty will say that, are you serious right now? But just look at what he does. He's a physical back. He's a bigger back. He may not really command a ton of money on the market, being that he's a little bit older now. So I can imagine Joe Mixon actually potentially coming here to the Tennessee Titans. So imagine that. Two Bengals coming here and then playing against the Cincinnati Bengals next year. That'd be funny. But that would be something I could see. I could also see them looking, of course, not only with, those positions, but of course, maybe the center position. I'm not sure if Aaron Brewer will be there next year at the center position, and you do have to look around to kind of upgrade that. So I'm pretty sure they'll be looking around in terms of that, if it's the right fit and the right person there. Just had to kind of go over a few of my thoughts for the Tennessee Titans as they named a new head coach. I know some will love it. I know some won't love it. I mean, there were guys like Thomas Brown, which I know just reading the tea leaves, there wasn't many that were excited about him in terms of potentially being the Titans head coach. He coached the Carolina Panthers with the offensive coordinator there. However, you also have to remember in Carolina, that was a house divided on the coaching staff. You had Thomas Brown, who was basically a guy I think that Frank Reich had to be convinced to take on his staff. And then you had Frank Reich's guys. So basically when Frank Reich got fired, it's all Frank Reich's guys got fired too. And then you had all of the guys that Tepper and the other guys weren't there. But that's a whole other situation. Aaron Glenn, definitely a leader of men, former player. I still remember him being smaller, tough, and a guy that just made plays. But hey, he's not. His time will come, but I don't think it's time right now. You have another guy, Bobby Slowick. Now, that one was interesting because I was actually thinking that Bobby Slowick would more than likely be the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. He does have connections with Rand Carthen from their 49ers days as well. So I was thinking that potentially could happen. However, it didn't. So, who knows? He may land with Atlanta. He may land with the Commanders. You never know where he could land, but he's going to have plenty of offers, just like Ben Johnson is going to have for the Detroit Lions. All in all, the Titans fans, and more likely, some have been clamoring for a guy that's an offensive-minded head coach. It's been a minute. I mean, you had Mike Vrabel. Yeah, Mike Mularkey, of course, was here. You had Ken Wisenhunt as well, and you had Jeff Fisher. You've had those litany of coaches here, just those line of coaches here. Now, I would say some will say Ken Wisenhunt was an offensive-minded coach. Some will say that Mike Mularkey was too. However, I'm not sure that either one of those offenses or either one of those offensive minds were offensive minds that would think about attacking down the field, thinking about stretching the defense out, think about those different things as they create an offense in today's NFL. And that's why I think it'll be interesting and it'll be great to watch Brian Callahan develop this Tennessee offense. He's going to get a chance to work with it from where it is now to build it to next year. And now, before you count out the Titans and say, oh, they've got time or they got to rebuild, You got to look around at a few teams here that went from 0 to 100 really quickly. I mean, no one thought the Houston Texans would be what they are. I'm not saying the Titans are going to be that next year, but you can't rule it out either. So there are teams that can go from 0 to 100 in today's NFL with free agency and things like that. And the way injuries happen, you never know what can happen. But yeah, thank you all for spending some time with me talking about the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans, that be Coach Brian Callahan. Of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms. That would be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. Of course, you can find us on YouTube as well. Just search Touring the AFC South. You can find me, the host, Mike Patton, on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton82. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_NP. Of course, you can also find the Touring AFC South merchandise like this shirt right here, as you all can see. You can find it on a few different sites. I'll place that link out there and just let me know. I'll get you all signed up, get you the link for you. We can get you some Touring the AFC South gear. I have it in Colts colors, Texans colors, Jaguars colors, all the teams' colors in the AFC South. Even got some black, white, red, all those different things. You name it, we got it. Touring the AFC South. Thank you all for tuning in to this impromptu episode of Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. Wow. Peace.